They say love is enough, that if you give your heart wholly to someone, you'll receive it back, untouched and cherished. I used to believe that. I used to believe in him. My name is Alira. I'm 33, married for 7 years to a man who once painted my life in vivid color. His name is Marcus, a finance consultant with a smile that once melted me faster than summer heat ever could. Our life in a glass-walled penthouse overlooking the city skyline was perfect. At least, it looked that way. From the outside, we had everything: Chardonnay evenings on the terrace, vacations in Tuscany, laughter echoing down white marble halls. But behind every clink of wine glasses was a silence that grew louder, sharper, hungrier. I first noticed the change in his touch. Marcus used to brush his fingers against my back even when passing by, as if reminding himself I was real. Lately, even his kisses felt like empty rituals, cold as morning air before the sun warms it. I convinced myself it was stress, deadlines, pressure. After all, love like ours doesn't just vanish. Then came the nights he stayed out. At first, it was once a week. Late meeting, he'd say. Always calm, always composed. Eventually, it became routine. Thursdays, Fridays, sometimes Sundays. The lies were wrapped in confidence. Text messages with periods in perfect place, no typos, no mistake. Too perfect. One evening, alone with the city humming outside, I poured myself a glass of red and wandered to the balcony. My phone buzzed. A text from him. Dinner with the boys. Don't wait up. The boys. His two best friends, Ezra and Nolan. Ezra, the charming lawyer with the mouth of a poet and eyes that always held secrets. Nolan, the sculptor, rugged and quiet, with arms that could break or cradle anything. I had known them for years. They were at our wedding. They toasted us with vintage champagne and smirks that, in hindsight, carried hints I was too blinded to see. I replied simply, "Enjoy." I stared at the message for a moment before locking my phone and setting it aside. My chest felt hollow. I don't know when the curiosity started. Maybe it wasn't curiosity, maybe it was need. A need to know the truth. One Sunday, when Marcus stepped out to meet Ezra for brunch, I did something I swore I never would. I followed him. My hands trembled as I steered the car, keeping my distance, trailing him through downtown. He didn't notice. Why would he? I was the invisible wife now, the shadow in his perfect world. He parked at a townhouse in a quiet neighborhood. I watched him knock. Nolan opened the door, grinning, wearing only gym shorts. My stomach twisted. A few seconds later, Ezra appeared behind him, shirtless, laughing. Marcus stepped inside, and the door closed. I sat there for a full hour, engine running, heart breaking. When he finally left, I didn't confront him. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just went home. That night, I looked in the mirror for a long time. I studied my reflection, chestnut hair cascading over bare shoulders, green eyes dulled by pain, lips untouched for weeks. I wasn't the girl he married anymore. I was something quieter, sharper, more dangerous. I told myself I would uncover everything. Not for revenge, but for clarity. Truth was power now, and I wanted all of it. The next week, Ezra invited me to an art gala. He claimed Nolan's latest sculpture was being featured. Marcus declined, saying he had meetings. I didn't ask twice. I wore a crimson dress I hadn't touched in years. It clung to every memory of his hands, every curve he used to worship. Ezra picked me up in a black coupe, his cologne thick with intention. His eyes roamed, but politely, like he knew I'd allow more if he waited. The gallery buzzed with conversation and clinking glasses, but I couldn't focus. I felt his eyes on me, not just Ezra's, Nolan's too, standing by his piece, a marble figure of a woman curled inward, hiding her face. He saw me staring. "You like it?" he asked when I approached. "It feels lonely," I replied. He nodded, then looked me straight in the eye. "It is." The weight of that look pressed against something inside me. Something neglected. Something wild. Later, after too much wine and Ezra's lingering glances, we found ourselves in a quiet corner of the rooftop. Stars above, streetlights below, wind catching the hem of my dress. "You ever think about disappearing?" Ezra asked. "All the time," I whispered. His hand brushed mine. Not in a seductive way. More like a test. I didn't pull away. "You deserve better, Elira." "You think so?" I challenged. "I know so." I turned to face him fully. The city lit his jawline, his mouth slightly parted, the same mouth that had whispered secrets to my husband. Maybe still did. My heart raced. My skin tingled. And still, I didn't pull away. That night, I lay awake in bed next to Marcus, who snored softly, unaware. His phone buzzed once. A message from Ezra. "She's slipping away." He didn't check it. I did. And for the first time in years, I smiled. I used to believe betrayal wore a villain's face. Sharp grin, slick words, careless cruelty. But now I knew better. Sometimes betrayal feels like warmth. Like a brush of skin. Like Ezra's voice the morning after the gala, vibrating in my ears long after the phone call ended. He'd said one thing, "I see you." And somehow that was enough. I began to play a game. A silent, precise game. No sudden moves. No accusations. I let Marcus believe I was still asleep to his lies, still floating through our curated domestic peace. But inside I was burning. I kept my composure while studying every move he made, every slip in his stories. I started answering his texts with vague sweetness, cooking his favorite meals, smiling like the loyal wife. But every night my mind wandered. To Ezra's words. To Nolan's hands. To what they could do together. A week later, I bumped into Nolan in a coffee shop downtown. Not accidental, I'd memorized his schedule after the gallery. He stood in line, scribbling something into a leather sketchbook, hair tousled, jaw shadowed. "Miss me?" I said, brushing past him. His head snapped up. A pause. A small, slow grin. "You stalking me now, Elira?" I leaned in close. "Only if you're worth it." He blinked once. Then, quietly, "You've always looked better without him." I didn't smile. I didn't need to. The heat between us was already rising. He offered to walk me to my car, hand ghosting near my lower back without touching. The air around us thickened, grew intimate. Dangerous. "I'm not stupid," I murmured as we stopped at the curb. "You and Ezra. You know things. You've seen things." Nolan looked down, then into me. "We never meant to hurt you. Didn't stop you. I didn't touch you, Elira. Not yet." That night, Marcus didn't come home. I didn't ask. Instead, I texted Ezra. "Come over." His reply came in seconds. "Now?" "Now." He arrived dressed like temptation. No tie, shirt slightly open, cologne like sin wrapped in amber. He entered without speaking, brushing past the threshold like a man crossing into holy ground. We sat in silence. The air buzzed. My robe hung low on one shoulder. Ezra's eyes flickered over me, but he didn't move. "You're mad," he said finally. "No," I replied. "I'm curious." He raised an eyebrow. "About what it feels like," I continued, "to let go. To stop pretending I don't see everything." Ezra's jaw tightened. "You don't need to do this." "Don't I?" I stepped closer. He inhaled sharply. "What did Marcus tell you about me?" I asked. Ezra laughed, dry, bitter. "That I ruin things." I placed a hand on his chest. "Maybe I want to be ruined." He didn't touch me. He just stood there, breathing me in like smoke. "Elira," he said, voice hoarse. "If I kiss you, I won't stop." "Good." So he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't pretty. It was fury and sorrow and years of suppressed desire crashing into skin, teeth, tongues. We didn't make love. We devoured it. We broke furniture. We broke rules. And when we lay tangled in the aftermath, he traced my spine with the tip of his finger like he was trying to memorize regret. "You're not a secret anymore," he whispered. "You're a decision." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't care. For once, I wasn't a wife. I wasn't a placeholder. I was something dangerous. Days passed like shifting shadows. Marcus acted normal, maybe too normal. Smiles, kisses, gift. Guilt always tries to mask itself in generosity. He booked a weekend getaway in Napa. I agreed, even though my mind screamed why now? But before we could leave, fate intervened. Ezra showed up at our door while Marcus was still home. He froze when he saw us together. Time didn't move. My husband's smile collapsed in real time. Didn't realize you were entertaining, Ezra said coolly. Marcus tried to play it off. Easy, what the hell are you doing here? I could ask the same, he shot back. I stepped between them. You invited us both to this game, Marcus. You just didn't expect us to compare notes. Silence. Then Marcus laughed, short, shocked, angry. You think I don't know what this is? You think I haven't seen the way he looks at you? He's been waiting for me to mess up since the day we got married. Ezra stepped closer. You did mess up. Repeatedly. You don't even hide it anymore. Marcus's face twisted. And you're what, her savior now? You think she's not playing both of us? I smiled. Cold. Sharp. Oh, sweetheart. I'm not playing. I'm winning. That night didn't end in shouting. It ended in silence, in doors closing, in the sound of a man realizing he wasn't in control anymore. Marcus left for the night. Maybe to Ezra's place. Maybe to someone else's bed. I didn't ask. Instead, I called Nolan. He didn't answer. But 20 minutes later, he was on my doorstep. There's a difference between being touched and being seen. Ezra lit fire. Nolan brought rain. His presence was quieter, deeper, as if he could feel the cracks in my soul and knew exactly how to pour light into them. We didn't speak much. He just looked at me like I was something holy. And then he kissed me like he was afraid I'd disappear. The next morning, I stood on the balcony, robe billowing, sipping coffee. Nolan slept inside, bare back rising and falling like waves. I didn't feel guilt. I felt clarity. I was no longer waiting to be chosen. I was choosing. But life isn't a fantasy. 2 weeks later, it all came undone. A dinner was planned. Ezra, Nolan, Marcus, me. We sat around a table pretending this wasn't a war zone. The tension was thick, conversations brittle. I waited. I knew something was coming. Then Marcus dropped the bomb. I want a divorce. Ezra flinched. Nolan froze. I blinked once. Good, I said. He wasn't expecting that. He expected tears. Rage. Pleading. Instead, I smiled. I've already called my attorney. Marcus stared. Who? I leaned forward, cut my steak, then said casually, Ezra? Everything shattered then. Marcus lunged. Ezra stood. Chairs scraped back. Voices rose. I didn't move. I watched. Because I was finally free. Because I had burned it all to the ground. And I didn't regret a thing. I didn't flinch when Marcus flipped the table. Porcelain shattered. Red wine painted the wall. Ezra held his ground, one hand clenched, one eye locked on mine. Nolan stood frozen, breath sharp, eyes wide, like he was watching a woman he didn't recognize anymore. Maybe I'd become someone new. Maybe that was the point. Marcus pointed at Ezra, wild with rage. You smug, self-righteous piece of... Don't, I said. My voice was low. Steady. The kind that quiets rooms. Ezra stepped back. Marcus didn't move. I stood slowly, brushing a shard of glass from my dress. You're not angry because I cheated, Marcus. You're angry because you lost control. His jaw clenched. He turned to Nolan, voice cracking. And you too? Nolan's mouth opened, then closed again. I answered for him. He never lied to me. Silence wrapped around us like a noose. Get out, I told Marcus. He didn't. Not immediately. But something inside him broke. You could see it, how his shoulders sagged, how the heat behind his eyes gave way to something colder. He left without another word. Just like that, the storm passed. The next morning, the city felt quieter, like it was holding its breath for what would come next. I didn't sleep. Ezra stayed. He made tea and read poetry out loud while I lay with my head in his lap. It was strange how intimacy could still feel soft after so much destruction. "Do you think he'll try to win you back?" he asked. I looked out at the skyline. "Does it matter?" Ezra's hand brushed through my hair. "To him, maybe. But not to me." That week, I lived in a blur of lawyers and letters, boxes and bargaining. Marcus wasn't dramatic. No threats, no scenes. Just cold strategy. He wanted the penthouse. I let him have it. I wanted my freedom. That was the only thing worth fighting for. I moved into a loft Nolan found for me, tucked above a used bookstore, filled with golden light and floorboards that creaked like honest voices. He helped carry boxes, never asking for more than I offered. He stayed the first night. We didn't sleep. It wasn't lust, not really. It was something deeper. A connection carved from vulnerability, not fantasy. We made love like we were writing the first page of something sacred. It didn't erase Ezra. It didn't erase Marcus. But for the first time, it felt like I belonged to myself. I didn't speak to Marcus again until the hearing. I wore all black. He wore navy. We looked like strangers who used to be gods together. Afterward, he followed me outside. "Elira." I stopped, but didn't turn around. Was it real? Any of it? I exhaled slowly. Yes. Until it wasn't. He didn't reply. He just nodded like he already knew. Ezra started sending letters instead of texts. Actual letters. Handwritten. Left in my mailbox like little secret. One read. "You've always been the chapter one wasn't brave enough to write." Another. "I still see the way you looked at me that night, like I wasn't a mistake but a choice." They weren't confessions. They were memories preserved in ink. He wasn't asking for me. He was honoring what we had. Still, my heart was confused. Because Nolan had become my gravity. And Ezra had always been the storm. I told Nolan about the letters. He didn't flinch. "He needs to say goodbye his own way," he said. "And if he doesn't? Then you'll decide." That's the thing about Nolan. He never fought for space in my life. He just became part of it, like air, like breath. He didn't need to be loud to be permanent. But silence has its weight. One night, Ezra called. "I need to see you." His voice cracked like glass under pressure. I hesitated. I shouldn't have. But I did. "I'm coming over." His apartment smelled like bergamot and regret. Books everywhere, pages marked with petals and poems. He didn't touch me. Just handed me a letter. "I wrote you something. I want to read it." He opened the envelope with shaky hand. "You were never the other woman. You were the only woman I ever feared loving. Because with you, I couldn't pretend. And pretending was the only way I knew how to survive." I didn't breathe. He continued. "I've spent my whole life watching people choose comfort over truth. You were the first truth I ever wanted more than comfort." When he finished, we stood in silence. "I miss you," he whispered. I closed my eyes. "You don't miss me. You miss the version of me you built in your head." His breath caught. "Is that so bad?" "It is when it costs me myself." He looked shattered. But he didn't ask again. He knew. I left without another word. I found Nolan asleep on my couch when I got home. No questions. He just opened his eyes, saw my face, and pulled me into his chest. And for the first time in months, I cried. The next morning, I woke to coffee and quiet jazz. Nolan sat cross-legged on the floor, sketching something. I peeked over his shoulder. It was me. But not as I was. As he saw me, eyes unafraid, mouth slightly smirking, hair wild like wind-touched fire. "Is that how I look to you?" He didn't look up. "It's how you feel to me." Later that week, I burned Ezra's letters. One by one. Softly. Silently. Not in anger. Not in pain. In peace. Because some stories are meant to be read once, felt deeply, then released. I wrote my own letter the next day. To myself. It said, You are not broken. It's strange, the quiet that follows chaos. You expect some kind of echo, some cruel reminder that the storm passed through. But silence can be heavier than thunder. That's what I learned after the ashes settled, after Marcus disappeared into his own undoing, after Ezra stopped writing, after Nolan became the only constant in a world where everything once spun. I kept thinking the end would feel like a door slamming. Loud. Final. But this was a slow closing. A click. A breath. A beginning disguised as aftermath. The bookstore below my loft started hosting poetry night. I started attending them. Not because I wanted to be seen, but because I wanted to remember how words could mean more than pain. The first night I read, my voice shook. But people clapped. A woman in the front row cried. And suddenly, I wasn't the betrayed wife anymore. I was something else. A woman reclaiming her voice, syllable by syllable. Nolan never pressured me to define us. That's how I knew he was different. Some days he stayed the night, sketching by candlelight while I drifted off to the sound of pencil on paper. Some nights he left quietly, like he knew I needed space to remember how to be alone without feeling abandoned. We didn't use words like relationship. We used gestures. Small ones. He left flowers in my sink instead of a vase. He texted me book quotes instead of selfies. He never said, "I love you." He just looked at me like he did. But the past has a way of knocking when you least expect it. One rainy afternoon, I returned from a poetry reading to find Ezra standing at my door. No umbrella. No warning. Just soaked curls, tired eyes, and a manila envelope tucked beneath his arm. "I'm not here to fight," he said. I didn't speak. I opened the door wider. He stepped in, dripping all over the hardwood like he'd done this before in another life. "This is yours," he said, handing me the envelope. Inside were sketches. Dozens of them. All of me. Laughing. Crying. Reading. Sleeping. Ezra had captured every side of me I thought no one saw. "I've been painting you," he said quietly. "Ever since the gallery. Ever since before." I stared at the pieces. "You should have shown me," I whispered. "I wasn't ready to lose you." "You already did." Ezra nodded, but his eyes lingered. "I still dream about you," he said. "Do you wake up relieved?" He laughed bitterly. "No. I wake up craving the version of you who never walked away. I wake up grateful I did." That was the last time I saw him. He left something behind, a sketch of me on the rooftop, eyes closed, wind in my hair. He titled it Unreachable. Months passed. Seasons shifted. I began teaching workshops in the bookstore, writing as healing, journaling as rebirth. Strangers told me their secrets like I was made to hold them. And maybe I was. Nolan published a book of portrait. He asked me to write the foreword. I agreed. It was simple, raw, mine. This isn't a love story. This is a survival. This is the beauty that comes from letting everything burn and finding yourself in the fire. One night, Nolan and I lay tangled on the rug, an unfinished bottle of wine between us. "Do you believe in soulmates?" I asked. He stared at the ceiling for a moment. "No," he said. "I believe in mirrors. People who show you who you are, sometimes when you least want to see it." I nodded. "You were a mirror. You shattered once," he said. "But now you shine in every piece." I kissed him, slow and soft. "I'm ready," I whispered. "For what?" "To start. For real this time. We didn't get married. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But we made a home. Not just a place. A feeling. We cooked without recipes. We danced without music. We made love without fear." Sometimes he still caught me staring out the window, lost in thoughts I didn't say aloud. "You okay?" he'd ask. And I always answered the same way. "I'm free." Marcus remarried. I heard about it through a mutual friend. His new wife looked like a version of me before. Polished. Perfect. I hoped she didn't lose herself. I hoped he learned. Ezra moved to Paris. Opened a gallery. I received a postcard once. She wore red again. But it didn't look like fire this time. It looked like closure. I never responded. Some stories don't need sequels. One evening, I stood at the window of our loft, watching golden light spill over the city like spilled honey. Nolan wrapped his arms around me from behind, chin resting on my shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured. I smiled. "How endings are really just beginnings we don't recognize yet." He kissed my temple. "Then I hope we never end." I turned to him. "Me too." And in that moment, with the sun setting and the past finally still, I realized I didn't need revenge. I didn't need apologies. I didn't even need closure. I had myself, and that was the most forbidden, beautiful love of all.